Okay, standing room only. This is a packed house. I love to see it. So, all right, good evening, everybody. My name is Samuel Leal. I am the operations manager for Successful Aging Solutions and Community Consulting. We are your senior services provider for the West Valley. So we operate the Saratoga Senior Center, the Adult Daycare Center, Ride Senior Transportation, if you've heard of that program. But we also have other projects. We have the Outlook newspaper, which if you live in Saratoga, Los Gatos, or Montecito, you receive that every month on your doorstep. We also have the Senior Guided Pathways Initiative with West Valley College. That is a program to bring the age 50 plus learner back onto the community college campus. It's an outstanding program. I highly suggest you look it up, check it out. We'd love to see you here on campus at West Valley. We also offer the SASCC Certified Farmers Market. We've changed our hours. Our next one will be tomorrow from 2 to 6 p.m. So stop by the Saratoga City Hall and check it out. Okay, so today we are introducing our county assessor. Now, I have a small project for you all. Repeat after me. It is Neysa like Lisa, Fligor like Tiger. All right, on three. Neysa like Lisa, Fligor like Tiger. Good. One more time. Neysa like Lisa, Fligor like Tiger. Awesome. You guys are winners. Thank you very much. I have a couple comments to say about Assessor Fligor before we get started. You know, when she was campaigning for this position, she spoke about her commitment to the older adults in our community, and her starting off her position with this presentation and this opportunity to connect with the community really reflects that dedication to the older adults in our community. So as the senior services provider, we are very appreciative of her and her team for that dedication, and very happy to have her here today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel, for that introduction. And thanks again so much for being here. And thanks to the West Valley and the Saratoga community for welcoming us and inviting us. And as Samuel said, this is my first community engagement event as your assessor. And it was can you hear me in the back? Yeah. Perfect. And it was very intentional because as Samuel said last year, when I learned more about the community, and the information that our office could provide to the community so you're better informed in making your decisions, I made it a priority that if and when I was elected, I would launch different community engagement efforts. And so along with the team, we have many planned, but we wanted to make sure that the first community was the senior citizen community. And of course, we came to Saratoga and the broader West Valley community to start it off. So Neysa Fligor, I think you all know how to pronounce my name now. And I do want to thank SASCC. You know, I was president of the Cities Association of Santa Clara County, which includes all the different city councils here in Santa Clara County. And when I was president, I invited Tyler Taylor, who is the head of SASCC, to be one of our guest speakers. And he talked about the mission of SASCC and supporting the senior citizen community, including the program they launched for over 50-year-olds being part of the community college community. So I am very familiar with your leadership. I'm very familiar with SASCC, and I think I know your community well enough. And so I do want to thank Tyler, Samuel, and SASCC for partnering with us to do our first community engagement event, and also for the work I know they do in our communities. You know, again, welcome to my first forum, my community engagement forum. And our theme for this year is public service through partnership. And just to give you an idea of the order of today's forum, we have an hour, and I will be talking because, as you may know by now, elected officials love to talk, unfortunately. And so I will talk for about 15 to 20 minutes. And then I will turn it over to the experts in our office who will talk about tying into the topic of today's forum, which is understanding the work we do so that you're better informed and hopefully will help you save money. So then I'll turn it over to the experts, and then we'll do Q&A at the end. So please hold your questions until the end. We will have sufficient time at the end. And then even when we close the formal program, we will stick around to answer any one-on-one questions you may have or clarifications based on our presentation. So again, public service through partnerships. And when we talk about partnerships, it's partnerships with all the different sectors here in Santa Clara County and community groups, from commercial developers, residential property owners, small business owners, real estate professionals, government entities, and of course, community groups like the senior community. Simply put, together, these partnerships make Santa Clara County work. Government needs the non-government sectors and the community to do well in order to drive tax revenue, and the non-government sectors and our community benefit from government having the revenue to provide the services needed, from public safety to healthcare, which ensures we continue to have a healthy, livable, and attractive Santa Clara County. Specific to the senior community, which I know in this area makes up over 30% of the population, we are partnering with you and SASCC to provide you, as I said before, the information that we hope will help you make better decisions and save you money. Before we get to the specific focus of the forum and I bring on the experts, let me share an overview of the assessor's office and the state of the Santa Clara County role growth. One of the things I learned last year when I was campaigning for the position was how little a lot of people knew about the assessor's office and what we do. And so I would attend different campaign debates and forums, and most of the questions related to, what do you do as an assessor? How does that relate to my everyday life? And so when I give these presentations, I now want to set that framework so everybody understands who we are, how we serve you, and how we can work together going forward. So the role of the assessor is to identify and assess all taxable properties in Santa Clara County. We conduct fair and accurate assessments, and our role, and I want to be clear on this one, our role is not to increase or decrease revenue for the different recipient jurisdictions. Our role is to make sure that we follow the law, we apply the right valuation methodology, so that the results are fair and accurate assessments, so that we can do the work that we're legally mandated to do. And when we talk about assessing all taxable properties, properties include residential, commercial, business personal property, mobile homes, and a few other categories. I want to emphasize that the assessor's office is not a tax agent. We are not the tax collector. In Santa Clara County, we are solely the assessor, and we do not report to the Board of Supervisors. We do have a separate Department of Tax and Collections in Santa Clara County, and they're the ones that issue the property tax bill and collect your payments. And so we get the calls, of course, because people confuse us with the tax collector's office and or team in the assessor's office. They happily and readily answer those calls and then happily also refer them over to the tax collector's office. But I always like to say we are not the tax collector. And in case you're wondering, the Board of Equalization of the state of California, that's the oversight body for the 58 assessors in Santa Clara County. So each county in California has its own assessor, and there are 58 of us. And so our oversight body is the Board of Equalization. And in addition to other roles, they're referred to as the BOE or SBE. In addition to other roles the BOE plays, it audits each assessor's office every 5 years. So we're not just out there on an island doing our own work, not following the law or just applying whatever evaluation methods we may want to do that on that particular day. Instead, we have to make sure we're following the laws. We have to make sure we're following the right methodology, and we get audited on that every 5 years, like every other county in California. And our last audit, which the former assessor takes full credit for, as he should, we showed an accuracy rate of 99.41%. So it wasn't perfect, but that shows you when you have an objective, independent body looking at the work we do in the assessor's office, this is the accuracy rate that we produce in Santa Clara County's assessor's office. The assessor also plays, and this came up last year, so I do want to address some of the questions I heard last year about whether or not we have a legislative role. It is not our legally mandated role, but we do play a role in legislation. A couple examples I'll mention. As you know, unfortunately, in Southern California, there were devastating fires in Southern California last year. And based on that, and based on the processes that were in existence at the time, and our experts in the office will talk more about some of these processes, the assessor in LA reached out to other assessors across the state to work with him to change the law in California to make it easier and simpler, and also to give victims of these disasters more time to get their paperwork done so that they're not penalized after going through such a horrific disaster. And so that's the type of legislation our office either leads or partners with other assessors or legislators on, and that's the legislative role we play. We also are very vocal on your behalf in pushing back when new laws are proposed in Sacramento that may complicate the process or make it more difficult for US taxpayers or we in the assessor's offices. And so we band together as assessors across the state to make sure that we protect our processes, we attempt the best that we can. And I know Prop 19 is coming up, but we do the best we can. Can't say we have always been 100% successful, but we do the best we can to push back and attempt to make sure whatever laws get adopted in Sacramento, that they make sense, they're helping taxpayers, and it's something that as your assessor, we can administer. Now, the work we do in the assessor's office, the property assessment that we do, as you know, that forms the basis for the property tax bill that the Department of Tax and Collections issues. And that generates revenue for specific recipient jurisdictions here in Santa Clara County. Cities, including Saratoga, and I know we have the vice mayor here, and I can't tell if we have other council members here that I'm missing, but cities across the county receive 14% of this revenue generated. 18% goes to the county. 7% goes to community colleges like West Valley. 44% goes to K through 12 public schools. And so when you combine the community colleges with the public schools, over 50% goes to our school community. 6% to school, to special districts, and 11% to redevelopment agencies. These funds, as you can imagine, make up a significant portion of the general fund for these recipient jurisdictions. So for example, the County of Santa Clara, 38% of the county's general fund dollars comes from the revenue generated from our work. And you know, these are discretionary funds that they can use towards public safety, healthcare, and to fill other gaps that they may experience. And as the former mayor of Los Altos, I also know full well how helpful those dollars are that are generated from property assessments. We close the annual assessment roll every year on June 30th. So we're in an annual cycle. July 1st through June 30th the following year, we go through the process of identifying, assessing taxable property, apply the law, apply the different valuation methods, and we create what's called the annual assessment roll. And legally, we have to get this done every year by June 30th. And it's for the previous calendar year. So in less than 2 months, on June 30th, 2026, we will close the roll for the 2025 calendar year. Of course, we don't have those final numbers yet, but I will share the numbers we have for roll close last year. So the roll we closed June 30th, 2025, which was for calendar year 2024. So the roll growth for last year's roll was $725 billion. Santa Clara County has the 4th largest roll in the state and the 1st in the Bay Area. So the 3 counties, in case you're wondering, that are ahead of us are LA, Orange County, and San Diego. But we're 4th in the state. And it shouldn't be a surprise to us because we're Silicon Valley. And as I mentioned, the different types of properties we assess, there's a lot of that here in Santa Clara County. So from that $725 billion, and this is something that, you know, last year I had to make clear, and so people didn't think the revenue generated was the $725 billion. There's a general levy of 1% that's applied to this $725 billion. And that's the revenue that's generated. So roughly $7.25 billion. That is the revenue that gets distributed based on those percentages I mentioned: 14 cities to the cities, 18% to counties, 44% to the schools, 7% to community colleges. So that's $7.25 billion, and this is just property taxes, gets distributed among all those different recipient jurisdictions. So again, as I said, so far, the numbers we're seeing for this roll close coming up on June 30th are very similar to what we saw last year. But we still have several weeks left. And as assessors, we don't make predictions and we don't guarantee anything. So I don't have breaking news about what the roll growth will be this year. But stay tuned. But again, the numbers we're seeing that are coming in are very similar to what we saw last year. As you can imagine, the work we do in the assessor's office gives us a bird's eye view into what's happening in the Santa Clara County real estate market. Someone actually asked me last year whether, is the only reason you assess property for tax purposes? And I said, yes, primarily, but our work also provides valuable data on what's happening in the county. We know where growth is happening, and we know where decline is happening. We know where commercial development is happening, and we know where there's residential growth. And we know what industries are doing well. We know AI is booming everywhere. There's a data center every other block you drive in some cities. And unfortunately, which industries are not doing well. Quickly, the factors that affect roll growth. So we talk about roll growth, we do the assessment and see what that annual roll amount is. Just so you understand, what causes reductions are exemptions, and you'll hear more about exemptions from the experts. We have exemptions for religious institutions, some public entities, homeowners, veterans, disabled veterans, and we'll go into more detail about how those exemptions work. But as you can imagine, when you apply those exemptions, these legal exemptions, it takes value off the roll. So that causes a reduction in the roll. And then we also have what are called Prop 8 reductions. And by law, if your property declines in value, we as your assessor are required to lower your assessed value. So that's why when you get those NAV cards, which you'll hear more about, you have a lot of questions about whether or not it really reflects the accurate assessed value of your property. What increases roll growth? Change in ownership. When you transfer it to one person to another person, unless it falls within some exemption or some protected area, that causes an increase. New construction, new homes being built, new commercial development in our downtowns, that increases the roll growth. Prop 13, as you know, it's capped at an annual adjustment of 2%, but that does allow some incremental increase. Bottom line is to see a big change in roll growth. We'll see, go up a little and go down a little over the last couple of years based on what's been happening post-COVID. But to really see a boom from the 4% where we've been, we really need a boom in the residential market to move that needle significantly on the roll growth. If you're curious, assessment, and I know there are a lot of Saratoga folks here, the assessment growth for last year, the top 5 cities with the strongest roll growth, and primarily due to strong residential markets, were Morgan Hill, Santa Clara, Saratoga, Los Altos, and Montserrat. And so last year, those had the strongest roll growth based on what was happening in their cities. Appeals, this was another topic that came up last year. And again, we'll go through the process. You get your NAV card, and you do have a legal right to appeal the assessed value on that card. We in the assessor's office, we offer a free informal review. And what that means is you get your NAV card. So come June 30th, our office issues the NAV card. It tells you what your assessed value is based on the work we did in the office. You then have a certain amount of time before you need to file an appeal. It's September 15th. But in our office, we offer a free informal review where you can contact our office either online or by calling us to say, I have questions about my assessed value. It doesn't seem right. Can I please meet with whoever did this assessment so we can talk it through? And I can tell you, there are times when we meet with taxpayers and they're able to provide documentation and information that we unfortunately did not have. And we quickly change that assessed value because, again, our role is to be accurate. On the other hand, there are taxpayers that will not agree with our assessment even after we explain it to them. Some of them accept it, and some of them will still want to appeal, and that's fine. They will still have an opportunity to appeal up to September 15th. And I want to underscore our free informal review process because the County of Santa Clara, not the assessor's office, I will say this a couple of times, it wasn't the assessor's office. The County of Santa Clara decided a couple months ago that they're going to now start charging an appeals application fee. And that goes into effect, my understanding, June. Is it June, autumn? Okay. See the experts. Which means, so before June, you could file an appeal, residential, non-residential, and you just submit the application, go through the process. Starting in June, for residential properties, and some other small categories, multifamily homes with 4 units or less, ag land, you will now and I hope you never have to appeal. I hope you work with the assessor's office through the free informal review process and you don't have to go through this appeal process. But just so you know, if you're appealing a residential or one of those smaller categories, it's now $290 per parcel, per application. And for commercial, it's $675. So please, when you get your NAV card this year, if you have questions, contact our office, because if there's a way for us to resolve it so you can avoid these fees, we want to support you, believe me. So please contact us, and I know we'll share information at the end. And as some of you know, I was sworn in on January 26th. I see a couple of you who are at my swearing in, and I got to work on day one. You know, my office priorities continue to be 3 things: closing the annual roll, implementing a new technology solution. So we've been on the same COBOL system, as many of you know, for over 45 years. Processing assessments for a $725 billion roll. As Silicon Valley residents, we all know that's unacceptable. And so we were fortunate last year, I think it was last year, yes, to acquire a new technology solution that will allow us to move off of COBOL onto this new modern technology solution that will increase efficiency, just allow us to do better work for you, have answers more readily available, and increase and improve the work we do in the office on your behalf. Basically just use the technology to do the work as opposed to right now where we do a lot of manual processes and there's a lot of paper in the office, which we're slowly trying to get rid of. And so for many reasons, we are excited about implementing this new technology solution. We have already started the implementation process. The goal is to have it implemented by 2028. I have to think about these years now. By 2028. And so that will obviously better serve us from a customer service, from a workflow, from an assessment and appraisal perspective. And so we're very excited. So the 3 office priorities: legal mandate, we have to close the roll by June 30th. 2, implementing this new technology solution. And 3, resolving these appeals. Currently, we have almost 4,000 residential appeals and a little bit more than 9,000 non-residential appeals. And we have the same staff in our office, a little over 200, I think we're at 243 right now, that have to do these 3 priorities. And so we're a lean office, but we're an amazing staff that's getting the work done. But these are the 3 priorities. We don't do housing policy. We don't do transportation policy. We do not do climate policy. We do assessment work. And these are the priorities in our office. And on day one, as I said last year, I'd be ready on day one. And with the great team that I have, we've already created an appeals task force to really look at ways to expedite and improve the appeals process. We're exploring introducing a low value ordinance, which would help, for example, parklets, which I know many of you are familiar with. I extended the time for so the informal review process I mentioned, I extended that. So then again, we want you to take advantage of it. And so I've extended the time for you to come into our office or call our office to actually see if we can resolve any questions you have. And last but not least, we're expanding the way we do community engagement with these different partnerships. And again, this is the first of many, and we're so happy you're here. And so with that, I want to introduce our team. And of course, our topic is understanding property assessments to help save you money. We're not the tax collector. We cannot guarantee that you'll in fact save money. I have to do the disclaimer, and I know Autumn showed it already. The goal is really to help you save time, money, and resources by explaining the laws, the processes, and the programs. The team will cover topics including transferring a home to your child, building an ADU, legal property tax exemptions, emergency preparedness if it ever happens to you. We have a new brochure in the office, and it's hot off the presses. You're the first recipients of it. You should pick it up. It is Preparing for Life Events. And the first one our team put together was, in the event you lose a loved one, what do you need to know and do from an assessor's perspective? And of course, we'll roll out more of these when it comes to, divorce, moving to another property in California. These are life events. Some of them we cannot plan for, but we want to make sure if and when they happen, from the assessor's perspective, we're giving you the information you need. So please make sure you take a copy of our Preparing for Life Events brochure. It's hot off the presses, as I said. So I want to invite, the team that we have, Deputy Assessor Autumn Young, and you may have met her at the beginning. There's Autumn. We also have our Standards Chief, Nora Galvez. And then also a real property assistant chief, where's Mai? There she is, Shara. And they will obviously go into more detail and give you the information that I'm sure you're here for. And we really hope you find this helpful. And again, please feel free to reach out to our office. We're here to serve you. And thank you again so much. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, okay. Well, my name is Nora Galvez, and I have been with the assessor's office for 25 years, actually. And I am very passionate about my work. I can talk to you about changes in ownership and exclusions, like for a very long time. And I think everybody knows me. And sometimes they have to say, okay, like no more, But anyways, so I'm here to answer any questions, after, if you do have any. So I'm going to be talking to you about Proposition 19. And I'm not sure if all of you are aware, but Proposition 19 has 3 different parts in it. One is the parent-to-child transfers. The second one is base year value transfers, and then also a disaster relief. So what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is the parent-to-child transfer that is also known as intergenerational transfer. But before we get to that, just a quick, review of Proposition 13. So Proposition 13 keeps property taxes low by freezing the taxable value of a home at the price that you bought it for. And it only allows small yearly increases, except if you have a change in ownership or new construction, okay? So new construction, very quickly, my colleague Mai will talk a little bit more about new construction, but under new construction is a new building, additional square footage to your home, you're adding a bathroom, you are adding, just making some changes to the building or a portion, like changing how the building, the use of the building, so that can be considered a new construction, okay? Or a change in ownership. So we define a change in ownership as a transfer of a present interest when somebody gets the benefit of that particular interest. So in other words, when I am going to either purchase the property from my parents, or I'm going to purchase just a new property, or me and my brother, we owned a piece of property, 50% each, and then now I'm going to purchase his 50%. So all of those transfers are considered what we call a change in ownership. So everything is a change in ownership unless an exclusion applies. Okay, so all transfers are a change in ownership. Parent to child transfer, grandparent to grandchild transfer, brother to sister transfer, cousin to aunt transfer. All of them are changes in ownership except when an exclusion applies. One of the things that when people come to the office, a lot of the times they don't know the difference between what is an exemption and an exclusion. And actually, that's very important for you to know. So an exemption is like a discount. It's like you have a coupon. And so a coupon that lowers your tax bill. So when you go to the store, you have a coupon. So you're going to pay $100, but you have a coupon for $10. So you're going to end up paying $90. So that's what an exemption is. Okay? An exclusion, it's something that we're not counting for. So an exclusion removes something from being taxed. So it's taken off the bill. And I have actually an example on that. So just to make sure that you understand the difference, right? So an exemption is like a coupon. You have, like a 10% coupon discount, right? From your actual bill. And an exemption is like something happened, but we're not counting that, okay? I know, I will explain to you a little bit more in a second, okay? So what are the available exemptions? Homeowners have two types of exemptions that they can qualify for. One is the homeowner's exemption, which is $7,000 deducted from your base year value. Remember the discount that I was talking to you about? It's $7,000 from your base year value, okay? But also you can also have the veterans exemption, but the veterans exemption is only for those that are currently serving in the military or that have been honorably discharged. So those are the only two exemptions that we have for homeowners, okay? Well, what are the available exclusions that we have? We have transfers that are interspousal, between spouses, between domestic partners, and something to to mention a little bit on domestic partners, they have to be registered domestic partners, includes death or divorce, okay? Transfers also parents to children, including inheritance, including a purchase or just a regular transfer like a gift. You want to give 10% of your property to your child, that qualifies. It could qualify for an exclusion, not an exemption, because remember, an exemption, I'm deducting money from your tax bill, right? But an exclusion, this happens, but we're not counting for that, okay? So under exclusions, we also have grandparent to grandchild transfers or grandchild to grandparents as well. And also it does include inheritance or just a regular purchase or just a regular transfer. All right. So Proposition 19, parent to child transfer exclusions. All right, ready to get into that transfer? All right, into those exclusions. All right, so like I mentioned, under the Proposition 19, the parent to child exclusions, you also might hear it as being called intergenerational transfer. So these are transfers that are parent to child exclusions, including also grandparents to grandchild, because I think a lot of people know it just as the parent to child transfers, but no. Also grandparent to grandchild exclusions can apply under the intergenerational transfer. What type of properties are included to transfer under Proposition 19 intergenerational transfer? is what is considered to be a family home or a family farm. Other properties are not included. What am I saying about other properties? You might have a rental home, that's not included. You might have a commercial piece of property, that is not included. What is included is only those homes that are considered to be family homes, okay? So, well, what is a family home under the code? A family home is the property that is considered to be the principal residence of a eligible transferor. What is a transferor? Transferor is the person that is giving away the property. So if the person that is giving away the property, if this home is considered to be the principal residence, so then this home qualifies. Something to point out is that the eligible transferee, the transferee is the person that is receiving the property, has to use this home as their principal residence as well within 1 year of the transfer, okay? So you have the home that is the principal resident of the person that is giving away the property, but also the person that is receiving the property, they have to make this home their principal residence within 1 year, okay? Principal residence eligibility for the transferee. Remember, the person that is receiving the property. Like I say, they must establish principal residency within 1 year of the transfer date. And this is very, 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 very important. It has to be within 1 year. If the transferee does not make this family home their principal residence within that time frame, unfortunately, you will not qualify. So the money that you're trying to save by doing these transfers, you will not qualify, okay? And that is very important. Also, the transferee, remember, the person that is making this home the principal residence, they must file the homeowner's exemption or the veteran's exemption, again, within that 1 year. So you literally have only just a 1 year. And a lot of the transfers that we deal with, unfortunately, in our office is due to death. So sometimes, and you know, we understand people go through a lot of, you know, obviously emotions and grief, and so a lot of people forget, and so they only have 1 year to be able to do this transfer. So that's very, very important for you to take away when it comes to Proposition 19. In addition to that, we have a second form that needs to be filed within 3 years, and that is the BOE form. So it is required, it's not an automatic exclusion that people can come and say, oh, you know, this is my dad, and so can you please, you know, just exclude the property from reassessment? No, we do need a Proposition 19 form as well. That form needs to be filed within 3 years from the transfer date, or 6 months from the notice of supplemental or escape assessment, before the property actually passes to a third party. If none of that, if the person does not file that form within that time frame, what we can offer is what we call prospective relief, which is a relief that starts from the lien day of the year when the taxpayer comes and files the form. However, just wanted to remind you, you only have that 1 year, because within that 1 year, you must make the property your principal residence, and you must file the homeowner's exemption or the veteran's exemption in order for you to qualify. Okay, so that is key. Within the new code, the new revenue and taxation code that talks about Proposition 19, which is 62.3, also within that, embedded within that, they added what they call a value test. And so what that value test says, that we are going to give to the taxpayer 1 million of, they call it excludable amounts, but it's like a credit that all of us get. And then they are applying a formula that we need to calculate in order for us to determine whether in fact you are going to be able to keep the same tax base as, you know, mom used to have. And if I'm going to be able to keep it, because, you know, that's the goal, right? For you to be able to save and be able to keep that same tax base so that you don't pay extra or more, you know, property taxes, okay? So the value test goes like this. So I have an example for you, okay? So for us, the date of the transfer is the day when the transfer happens. Usually is when the document gets recorded, or in case of a death, the date of death is the date of the transfer. And so in this example, what I have is a example where somebody passes away, okay? So the death happened on June 2nd, 2021. This, let's just say it is mom. Mom was paying taxes based on 825,450, okay? So that is called factor base year value. And then we have to calculate according to this value test. We also have to calculate the fair market value. So this is the value that the property, my mom's property, could actually be sold as of her date of death. So we had that amount 1.5, okay? The formula says that we need to get the factor base year value plus the credit that they're giving us, which is $1 million, and we need to add that amount. So now we have 1.8 as excludable amount. So that's us for us to be able to exclude it. But then we have to minus that from what is the fair market value as of the date of death. So you guys can see in there 1.5 minus 1.8. So we have an exceed assessed value. So in this example, market value does not exceed the excluded amount. So that means that if I inherit this property as of June 2nd, 2021 from my mom, I'm going to be able to keep paying the same taxes as my mom. And that's the benefit. That's the saving money. Okay? All right. Again, as long as I meet all of the requirements, I move into my mom's house within that 1 year, and I file the homeowner's exemption form and the other form, the Prop 19 form, okay? As long as I have all of those requirements, I will be able to keep the same base year, okay? And I'll get back to you with your question. But,
At the end, so write them down.
but let's look the other way around, okay? So in this situation,
There's no property that value in this whole valley.
well,
And let's get reality. That other one, the 800,000, that's not realistic either.
yes, yes,
Parents bought that house back in the.
right.
That's bigger.
And obviously the area, yes. And you'll be surprised, we do still have some homes that low, honestly. But okay, so let's still do the date of death. April 3rd, 2021. Mom was paying taxes on 348, 321. The fair market value is 1.8. Okay. We're gonna add in the $1 million to the factor base year value. I have an excludable amount of 1.3. Okay. But then the fair market value is 1.8. So you can see there the formula. So there is an excess amount of 451. So that means that we are going to add 451, the excess amount, to what mom was paying taxes on. You can see there at the bottom. So the total new taxable value is going to be $800,000. So unfortunately, I will not be able to keep the same tax base as mom in this scenario. I am going to be paying taxes based on $800,000, right? But depends on how you want to look at it, right? Because if I would not be able to qualify, I will be paying taxes based on 1.8. So at least I'm going to be paying taxes on $800,000.
Saratoga would be more helpful for the entire room instead of numbers that are for.
Well, some of us
Right.
for a
Well-
long time, and these numbers might be real.
Yeah. So
Not the formula.
well, yes, yeah, and it is based on the formula. So I was just trying to give you examples, and you can base it on your own scenarios if you can. But so in this case, like I said, it is going to be a little bit higher than what mom used to pay. And something to point out is that there is a process that we have to go through. So a lot of the taxpayers don't realize this, but when it comes to Proposition 19, we do have to make some adjustments, as I was mentioning to you. We need to calculate the value, the new value. So sometimes you might get a supplemental tax bill not adjusted, and so when it's adjusted, then you will go ahead and get the difference. But the property will be reappraised at the fair market value as of the date of death, and this is the scenario that I just showed you with the excess amount. So the transferee may get a supplemental tax bill based on that amount until the Prop 19 exclusion is approved and is applied. So we just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. So how do you can you play with some of these numbers if you do know the factor-based year value and maybe the fair market value? Yes, you can. In our website, we actually have a estimator where you can apply this formula, the one that I was just showing you. So just you can just plug in your numbers, and you can have an estimated amount of your future base year value. Okay. Some of the most common questions on Proposition 19 is, can property be reassessed when owners die? Yes, it could. It could. If you do not qualify for the exclusion, then yes, the property can be reassessed. So can I rent out the home if I have a Prop 19 exclusion from reassessment? The answer is no, because you need to occupy the home as your principal residence. And that's, like I said, that is key under the intergenerational transfer. Okay. I mean, I guess you can rent it, but we're going to remove the exclusion, right? What if the owner is not occupying the home because they are confined to a hospital or other care facility? Actually, this is something that we used to get some cases like this. And until 2023, there was a change in the law that now is allowing for those exclusions when, unfortunately, the parent has to be moved into a facility home. So they will occupy the home if they weren't in there's certain requirements that they have to be met. Like I said, just making sure you understand. If they were not moved to the home, if they would have occupied the home as their principal residence. So we will be looking for that, okay? So this change in the law says that the following requirements need to be met. They will occupy the home if they weren't in the hospital or the care facility, and they intended to return to the home, and the home is not rented to the person other than the family as defined within that code. So if the intention was to move mom or dad back into the home, into her or his principal residence, so then it's okay. But as long as the home is not rented, like to a third party or, somebody, a stranger, it has to be rented to other than a family member. So just wanted to make sure that you knew about that. And the last question, I inherited property, then sold it to my sibling. Will taxes go up? And the question is yes, yes. Because unfortunately, transfers between siblings are not excluded from reassessment. Okay, so you will be reassessed. And as our Assessor Fligor stated, that we have a new resource for you, which is the life events. And I really want to encourage you to take one of these. This is really good information. The intention for this is for you to keep it with your, confidential documents. And it has like a checklist where you can, do check marks in here when you are ready. Like I do have one of these actually in my documents from my daughter. And I'm like, okay, so this is what you have to do. Just read this pamphlet, and so you can be ready when I passed away. But anyways, but this is really good information for you to have. And like we said, it's really literally hot out of the oven. Like you guys are the first ones that are having in your hands, this little pamphlet with you guys. And so now I want to introduce to you Mai. She will be talking to you a little bit more about values. Here you go.
Hi, everybody. All right, so I am going to talk to you about moving your tax base to another property. Is anybody interested in that? So you can do this if you fall under one of three categories. If you're at least 55 years or older, if you're severely disabled at the time and need to move to another place to accommodate that disability, or if you're one of the victims of a major catastrophe, such as the LA fires, where you have to, move your tax base because your house is no more. All right. So basic eligibility, you're either 55 years or older, you have a severe disability, and that's why you need to move to the house. For example, you're moving from a 2-story to a 1-story to accommodate that disability. You must be on title on the original and the replacement residence. You don't have to be the only one on title, but you have to be on title if you intend to move the tax base, right? So you can buy the house with your kid, your husband, it doesn't matter. Replacement residence must be purchased or newly constructed. So you can build a new place if you like, but it has to be completed within 2 years of the sale of your original home. So you got to be real careful in that and make sure, your new construction is going to finish. If you're going to sell your house first, make sure you know for sure that you're going to finish the construction in 2 years, or wait until you finish construction before you sell the house, right? It must be your primary residence, and you're eligible for the homeowner exemption, and your application must be turned in within 3 years for the full benefit. Okay, here's an example. So this case, the factored base share is 825,000. That's realistic. That's very realistic, right? If you buy a house a few years ago, for example, your factor base is 825,450. Your house is worth $1.5 million. It's worth $1.5 million, but since you bought it a lot earlier, you're only paying 825,000, and now you decide to move or downsize. And your new house, your replacement property value is only $1.3 million. In this case, your new value is lower than your house value that you're moving out of. If that's the case, you're fully qualified. You get to take your 825,000 that you originally paid for, and you move it to the new home. So your new home value is going to be 825,000. So even though you sold your house for $1.5 million, you get to pocket the 700,000 and just pay taxes on the, well, you're pocketing the $1.5 million. You're paying taxes on the 825,000, right? In the event you decide to upgrade and buy a house that's more, 2.3 million, for example, your house is worth $1.5 million, right? So the difference now is 2,300,000 less the million five that you're selling your house for. There's an excess value of 800,000. We're just going to take that 800,000 and add it to your old base. So even though you're buying a house worth 2.3 million, your tax base, what you're going to pay tax on, is the 800 plus the 825. So you're going to be taxed on 1,600,000, even though you bought your property for 2,300,000. It's just a difference of the two property values added to your old base. Simple enough. There's an estimator too, if you want to play with your values and see, if I buy this place and you plug in your property parcel, they'll know what your factor base, your value is. Just plug in how much you think you'll buy your new place for, and it'll let you know what your new your new assessed value will be. Okay. Frequently asked questions. Can I transfer my base year value anywhere in California? Yes. Because of the Prop 19 that was passed in 2021, anywhere in California, you can transfer that tax base. So, I mean, you guys have a lot of choices. From a high value county, you can move your base to Sacramento, Wright County, Humboldt County, all the lesser value. You have plenty to play with. How long does it take to process a Prop 19 base year transfer? Typically up to a year. Just depends on if you have all your paperwork in, everything's in order. Sometimes we have to reach out to the other county to verify information. So typically it'll take up to a year. How much taxes do I pay in the interim? Well, that would just be the fair market value of your new home. That's what you pay in the interim until your Prop 19 application gets processed and approved. If I inherit a residence from my parent and I file for and receive the parent-child exclusion, when I turn 55, can I sell the property and transfer that base year to another property? Yes, you can do that. You can transfer your base year up to 3 times per life. Currently, that's the law. My spouse and I just got a divorce. We are going to sell the house that we bought together, and I plan to buy a new house. Can I transfer the tax base, or am I only able to transfer half of it? Yes, you may transfer that tax base. It's all or nothing. Only one person gets to transfer it because it's only one base year that's going to transfer. So you and your spouse have to amicably agree to which one of you will take that tax base. And if you don't agree, it's first come, first serve. So move quick. New construction accessory dwelling units. There's 2 events that trigger reassessment, and that's change in ownership. That includes the parent-child transfer and inheritance property, right? If the person is deceased, they can no longer own the property. So the date of death will be the trigger. And then new construction. How we value property. It's generally assessed at the fair market value at the date of transfer. So fair market value is determined by comparable market sales. What's it selling for in the open market? What's it worth? The date of transfer is generally the date of the deed or any other legal document transferring ownership. If the transfer is due to the inheritance, the date of the death of the transfer is the date of transfer. New construction, well, that's fairly straightforward. New construction is new buildings on a vacant lot, for example, or if you demolish an older home and build a new home, that's new construction. If you construct a ADU on your lot, that's new construction. If you add square footage, like add another master bedroom, extend the kitchen, those are additional square foot. If you improve the property even within the home, like if you add bath fixtures, if you add a convert.
Can you elaborate on that bath fixture?
Bath-
Remodel, for instance.
If you're remodeling and replacing what's there, that's typically not added, but I'm saying if you took a den, for example, and made it into a master bathroom by adding, another walk-in shower,
A new bathroom, you mean?
right, new bathroom, new fixtures.
Questions at the end. Yeah, please.
Versus remodeling, I mean, we do it every day.
Right, remodel is different, new construction is different, new addition, right? If you're altering or converting the building, for example, if you're converting the garage into living area or an ADU, that's value add. If you're converting a single family residence to a daycare center, those are value add. Okay. ADUs are popular nowadays. So, a lot of people are doing it. The new construction of an ADU will be, assessed at fair market value, and that'll be an additional assessment to your property, right? Because it's new construction. The new assessment is added to your existing assessment. Conversions of existing space, such as a family room or a garage into ADU, will also trigger additional assessment. And then any other areas, like you say, that are untouched will not be reassessed. Supplemental assessment is just the difference between the new value and the old value, right? So if you bought a place for $2.3 million and who you bought it from previously held it on for 50 years and only has 100,000, had a factor base year of $100,000 on it. The supplemental difference is the step-up value difference. You bought it for 2.3. We previously billed it at 100,000. Your supplemental bill is going to be based on that difference of 2,200,000. All right, it's just a makeup bill from the old value of what we sent out the bill to what you brought it up to fair market value. So that's the supplemental assessment. It will be prorated from the date of your ownership. So we will not bill you for when you do not own it, but once you own it and change the value, that's when we're going to start prorating you. It's not paid in escrow during purchase because the bill wasn't created yet. You haven't completed the purchase yet, right? And then once that gets through the system with the assessor's office, that we know that there's a transfer, we revalue the property up to fair market value, the tax collector will send you a bill afterwards. Supplemental assessment, before we send you any bill, we're going to send you a notice. And it'll usually say, hey, because of this event, which is a new construction or a transfer, we were, required to revalue the property. This is our new value. And if you don't agree with that, make sure you contact the assessor's office right away to let us know, what are we missing? Why are we, valuing at something you don't believe is correct? Pay attention to the notice, because it will give you instructions, it will give you timelines, when to file what, timelines and deadlines to contest your value. And then depending on the timing of the transaction, you may get 1 or 2 tax bills. That just depends on, when you purchased it. Because we're on an annual fiscal cycle of July to June, depending on when you bought the property, you may get 1 or 2 bill if it crosses tax years. Okay, and if you have questions on what your supplemental bill may look like, we have another estimator for that. So just plug in your parcel number, old value, new value, and then it'll tell you what your anticipated supplemental bill will be, so you can set aside some money to cover that. And there's our website QR. So it'll take you to our assessor's website with plenty of information on Prop 19, all the estimators that Nora and I spoke of, and then any FAQs you may have also. And I get to turn it over to Autumn.
I've got another microphone. Okay. Thank you all so much. Let me just make sure my microphone's working. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to be your closer, and then I'm going to help moderate questions. So I have a couple of more points to talk about, and then I'm going to help moderate questions. It'll be really helpful when I do that for you to raise your hand and wait till I call you, because I know we have a lot of questions in this room. So I'm going to run through this really quick. The notification of assessed value, you heard Assessor Fligor talk about this. This is this card. Anybody recognize this? Okay, wonderful. Did you recycle it as soon as you got it? Okay, don't. It's got really important information. That informal review that Assessor Fligor mentioned, really, really important, sent out on June 30th each year. You can also opt in for paperless so that you know you always have it, and that gets into your email box earlier than even gets into your mailbox. So you can do that. As Assessor Fligor mentioned, we extended the review period to an additional week to give you more time, and it starts the assessment appeal filing period. So really, really important, pay attention to that card. On that card, in this upper corner, is a QR code directly to your property. It's got the land value, the improvement value, and also it'll say homeowner's exemption. If that has a $7,000 number in it, that means you have the homeowner's exemption. If it doesn't have a number in it, you want to apply for the homeowner's exemption. That's both a value savings of about $70 to $80 per year, which is meaningful, but also it's the way that we prove primary residence for the base year value transfer and the intergenerational transfer you heard. Really important. External savings programs. So we are the assessor's office. You heard us talk about what we do, but there are two other departments that have tax savings programs that may be of interest. The state controller office has a property tax postponement program, should you qualify, and the Santa Clara County has a parcel tax exemption. I'm going to talk about those briefly. State controller's office, you can qualify for the property tax postponement program if you're 62 years of age or older, have a total household income of $55,000 or less, and have at least 40% equity in the property. You can go to their website and find out more about that program, should that be something that you or your family needs to take advantage of. It does have to eventually be repaid, but it does defer the property tax. And as you heard Assessor Fligor mention, we don't collect property tax. There's no such thing as a tax assessor. It's just the assessor and the tax collector. There also, Santa Clara County also has parcel tax exemptions, 65 years of old or years or older, or these other categories if you are disabled, regardless of your age. And what that does is you can apply to school districts or special districts that currently impose a fee on your tax bill. You'll see that in your tax bill, and you can apply to those departments and get that parcel tax waived. So you do have to file directly with the special districts and the schools, but it can potentially be a savings for you. Okay, now we're going to move into question and answer time. I know there was a couple of points just in the background that I wanted to clarify before we start with question and answers. And one of those that's really important about the grandparent to grandchild exclusion, the intervening generation must be deceased. So grandparents can only, and grandchildren can only have that exclusion as long as the interceding generation is deceased. So I'm a grandchild. My mother's passed away, but my grandparent wants to give me property. I can qualify for that exclusion. So that's a really important distinction about that particular exclusion. We also get a lot of questions about ADUs and the garages being made into an ADU, and that's that change of use. So that even though it's not adding square footage, it's changing the use of that square footage. So that has a different market value than a garage value does. So those are that's a common question we get about ADUs, and I just want to make sure that's really clear. So now we've got a microphone. Yes, okay, so we're going to pause the recording because we're not going to record the question